There's only one economy, and it has to be green because it's cheaper, it's more efficient. That's why people switch to it. We are condemning ourselves to a slow death by burdening our economy with very, very expensive electricity. Why we're doing that, I don't know.
We will be focusing on e-mobility technology, and I bring you Dr. Douglas Rasbash. So, welcome, Dr. Rasbash.
Thank you very much,
Episode 2.
Episode 2. Africa is not an excuse for things not to happen. It can happen, but it depends on you.
How do you define e-mobility and relating to electric vehicles?
It's the electrification of the transport sector. Most African countries import their fuel. There are a few producers, of course, and that's very expensive. Why we subsidise air, but we don't subsidise public transport. The more trips per hour in and out of Gaborone in the peak than in the whole year in and out of SSKI or something like that.
Welcome to the Growth Well podcast, where we tap into a well of knowledge, innovation, and leadership to fuel Africa's growth. Here, we explore thought-provoking insights and expert knowledge that empower individuals and businesses to thrive across the continent. Whether it's personal development or professional advancement, our conversations inspire action and impact. This is Growth Well, where ideas flow and growth begins. Let's dive in.
Here we go again. Dumelambetsu, Dumlane, Mamuka, all the jazz. Back to Growth Well podcast, and welcome. Here we have an episode that's going to be delving into technology. You know, in Setswana we say "Masaka profu ya gabo, ha ka fela lentswe," which translates that if you believe in something, you keep going till your voice finishes. That's what the Setswana saying goes. Now, I've always believed that technology innovation are the ones that are going to put Africa on the map. But believe me, we keep struggling. It keeps struggling. I have said it in talks, in presentations, in Lusaka, in Kampala, in Gaborone, talking about how we need to invest in technology to make Africa match your India, match your China, match your South Korea, but the battles carry on. But today, we're not going to be talking about the overall technology. We will be focusing on e-mobility technology, and I bring you a gentleman, Dr. Douglas Rasbash. He's been here before, so welcome, Dr. Rasbash.
Thank you very much, Elpana.
Episode 2.
Episode 2.
Great to see you again, neighbor.
Yes, likewise.
Yeah.
I always feel very comfortable here. You put your guests at ease very quickly.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I hope you've enjoyed other podcasts after we did ours last year.
Yes,
I see
I
it was
enjoy them
September
very
last
much.
year, so over a year ago.
There are certain podcasts on farming which I think are very interesting, actually.
Great stuff. Now I like to start on the lighter side.
Yes.
And before we came here, we were talking about you're not a young man anymore. At 75, I'm estimating.
Correct.
You got your PhD when you were 70. So I'm pumping up to the youngsters too, even the old stars, to show them that it's never too late.
No.
It's too late. But the important thing, I shared with you a very personal story of how my mother passed on at 77.
Yes,
but she retired quite early at 60.
Yes.
And part of her challenge was, that's why I have a big problem with retiring, was not being involved cognitively as she was during her career days. And we believe for the rest of my family that contributed to. Now, you're a busy young man. Busy young man, you write for the Gazette, you go for interviews at local radio stations like you did recently, talking about NDP 12 and its impact on climate change. You've been on this podcast. You just told me that you write for another asset manager and all that. How do you keep up with that? How has it been valuable to keep you happy and aging gracefully?
Yeah, it's all about, I think, one's approach to life. And if life has got meaning, then work isn't work. It's simply a passion. It's pleasure. It's not a drudge. It's not a toil. When I write something, it's an absolute pleasure. It's like going and playing a round of golf. It's like you with your cattle. You don't consider your management of your herd to be a work, in the sense of you have to do it. You do it because it's the greatest pleasure you have, sitting there watching them move in the bush in good health. Please don't push me on the details. I'm not a cattle farmer, although I did rear calves once. So I do have a bit of a smattering on the subject. But that's how we do it. Because it gives me pleasure, really.
And you talk about the sense of meaning, gives you a sense of meaning.
Yes. And lots of people call me and they say, well, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Can you help me? It's rare that I say no. I say yes, and
engage.
Yes, engage, particularly with young people. Well, it's easier for me to find young people, and most people are
like
younger than me. Like you, you're a youth, young man. But no, I mean, young people in their 20s,
no, I got you.
30s, they come to me. Would you mentor me? I'm doing this, I'm doing that. What do you think? And it's great. What keeps me young is mixing with people much, much younger than me.
That's true.
Yes.
That's true.
So there's the passion, there's the meaning, and mixing with younger people.
That's important. And like I told you in the book that I wrote, InnoLead, and to the viewers as well, the book that I wrote, InnoLead, I've got a whole chapter talking about the formula for happiness, which is called Joy Rap. And in Joy Rap, there's the P, which is living for purpose or meaning, have a meaning in life. That's part of the formula. And other ones which we'll have time to talk about, but it's very important. And they say when you have a sense of meaning when you wake up every morning, people who do that actually live 7 years longer than those that don't have a sense of purpose in life. That's how fundamental it is.
There is another dimension as far as I'm concerned, because I'm a foreigner here in Botswana. Let's put the obvious on the table. I'm not a indigenous person to Botswana, although I've been coming in and out of Africa for over 40 years, and it's a super place. I love being here. I always have, but nonetheless, I'm a foreigner, and finally, I've chosen this to be my last resting place, and I've been here as your neighbour.
Yes, a neighbour down the road
for the last 15 years, and I love it here. And I said to myself, well, let me give back to Botswana what they have given me in terms of friendship and environment, and have provided a meaning. Botswana, I don't like to call it a developing country, but in many ways it still is, especially given your introduction on technology. It's at the starting line of so many things, which is part of our discussion today. And I have certain attributes and experience, and worked all over the world and different agencies and governments and so on. So I have so much to give.
Wonderful.
That's what I say to people. Even yesterday in Parliament was meeting a senior ranking MP, and I said to him, you could say but I have plenty to give. So feed off me.
Yeah, wonderful. And be blessed. And long live. Long live. Yeah, let's get into the topic. Now, before we get into, and I know electric vehicles, e-mobility was a big topic with the previous government in the last 2 years, especially going towards the elections was a big topic.
That's the thing.
You remember that?
We should talk about that.
Yeah, but before we get into that, I'd like to pitch technology at a high level so that our audiences across Africa, even globally, to understand what I said earlier, that if we do not invest, and I've done the work in terms of, with the team, in terms of the impact of investing in R&D, research, innovation, science, technology, that if you do that, you have a higher leverage of companies developing faster, just like your South Korea, like your Singapore, your Finland and those type of countries, Taiwan and so on. Now, with Botswana, and we've had good times, and it's regrettably because those good times could have been the times when we invested in this type of technology, such as electric vehicles, e-mobility, AI, blockchain, all these fancy technologies of today. But I'd just like to give you some numbers in terms of how bad we are. Just with regard to a high-value high-tech exports, high-value tech exports, Africa only contributes less than 0.5% of global high-tech exports, just to give you the thing. And the challenge is that we have become consumers. I mean, in Botswana and Africa, when somebody, it doesn't matter whether they are poor or rich, they always go for the top iPhone, iPhone 17 or whatever it is, So we are consumers of high tech. When someone gets enough money, becomes rich, they want to go for the most expensive vroom vroom to get the latest BMW. So that has become a culture that we consume and we don't produce. We'd rather buy from Samsung, a good Samsung phone, instead of producing the Samsung. Now, another important indicator is what they call GET, the gross expenditure on R&D for any government, and in the total of Africa. Typically, the countries that have made it have invested on average 2.2% of their budgets on R&D annually. Africa has never even gone to 1%. Africa averaged about 0.5% of their budgets. So I think you can see why I say some of these things were self-inflicted or being blind to the necessary investments for us to up the game and hopefully have more countries joining the high-income brackets like we all desire to be.
Yeah, it's not possible to join the high-income bracket and have low expenditure on R&D.
Absolutely,
It's just never going to happen, is it?
Yeah.
Because high income, and I wrote about this recently, step back. To get to middle income, we needed to use what they call the developer economic model, something that Keith Jeffries often talks about, as he did quite recently, which means if you develop an infrastructure, road and rail and airports and water and all that, somehow or other it will stimulate economic growth, long-term economic growth. And for many years now, it hasn't done that here. It hasn't done that here. And in fact, unemployment, curiously, has increased with our accumulation of gross fixed capital, which is the
infrastructure.
The value of, exactly.
Yeah.
And that should be a sort of, not warning necessarily, but a red flag to government. Say, well, we must change our economic model. Now, I was hoping with the BETP and all this talk about transition.
The Botswana Economic Transformation Plan, BETP.
The economic fundamentals would come first. Not the politics, but the economics. And the economics would say, well, look, we've been there, we've done that. It's taken us to middle income status. What we need to do now is to get us to high income status, which is based on intellect, it's based on bottom up, it's based on people. It's not based on government top down. And that's going to get us to that higher level, not the other way. And the disappointment is that when you look at NDP 12 and BETP, there's very little, continuing your point, part of that, there's actually very little expenditure, pure R&D. And you're right, it's less than 1%. When I was doing my PhD, I was much closer to, the source of research, and I think it was 0.2%. Then I think Peggy Sarami doubled it to 0.4%.
Yeah. She did. I actually talk to her
Do you
about
remember
it.
that? Did you talk to her about that?
Yes, I said,
yes.
You got to up the game.
I appreciated that very, very much. It made a huge difference, and some of that was allocated to climate change. But it's 0.4%.
It's still very,
that is
very
not
minute.
going to drive us
Absolutely.
to a high-income country. The other statistic, which probably do know, is our registrations at WIPO. The
Intellectual Property Organization.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for 10
IP.
years, there was only one patent registered by a true Botswana. People live here and they register patents, but they're mostly foreigners. So we that's another indicator, the registration of patents and so on and so forth.
I've got it here. Africa accounts for less than 1% of global patent applications.
There you go.
Recent UN data 2023. This is how bad it is. Patents, this is IP, this is creativity, this is ideation, coming up with unique ideas. So this is a whole sub-Saharan Africa. Millions and millions of very bright people, but we're not registering ideas to the world that can help us with the
and having innovation hubs. They may look smart and win architectural awards, but I don't know that it's actually catalyzed any more patents.
Yeah.
And that's the true measure.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I was being commented on quite extensively because of NDP12 and the transition program is really the lack of focus on outcomes. And you know, as a management consultant, that's what you preach. It's not outputs that matter, but outcomes. It's not
stuff.
Kilometers of road or megawatts of electricity. It's what that electricity is powering in terms of industry and employment. Or it's not the kilometers of road. It's not traffic. It's, you know, what economic opportunities it catalyzes that's important. And 85% of the KPIs in those things are all output. So I analysed it. I've got the database. So all output. And actually, there's no mention of electric vehicles in either of those documents, just to throw that one in, you know. But there isn't. There isn't, you see.
Even with the hype. No, let's get back to, let's get to the topic then.
Yes.
E-mobility. And electric vehicles. We'll get to the last year the hula baloo with the former president and seeing them drive around to political rallies. We saw a couple of them. But first, let's define what we mean by e-mobility. Remember, the purpose of the podcast and you and me is to try get people to know these things so that we can have a whole squad of people promoting and putting pressure on government to take them on. So how do you define e-mobility and relating to electric vehicles?
It's the electrification of the transport sector, putting it bluntly. It's moving people and goods around, but not using petrol and diesel, fossil fuels, but using electricity. Pretty much that's it in a nutshell. And it covers all modes of transport. There are people experimenting. DHL, they run a little fleet of electric planes, which is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there are electric ships now.
So drones will fall in the same category?
And drones, absolutely.
Drones,
good. Thank you for mentioning that. It's easy for them to slip out. Everybody knows about drones.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a good example,
even
isn't it?
Farmers, you know, looking at the cattle.
Exactly.
It's electric. And yes. So it is the total electrification of the transport sector, I would say, as that's how to define it.
And why is it so important for Botswana and other African countries to appreciate what e-mobility can do for our countries? You know, sometimes it's the lack of knowledge that we don't put the pressure. Now we're trying to get someone in Khomokasitwa, in Gangwaketse, someone in Livingston, in Zambia. Why should they listen? Why should people give us attention on this e-mobility discussion, Doug?
Well, I could start, especially having my climate change hat on, by saying, well, electric vehicles emit less greenhouse gases. Okay. But I won't start there because generally at the political level, and even you know, listeners, they will be interested in environmental issues, but they're more interested in economic ones.
Yeah.
Sadly, we know that. And, you know, mutual friends spend a lifetime trying to get the environmental messages across, don't we? But it is a struggle. So at the top of the list, then it's economic. Most African countries import their fuel. There are a few producers, of course, maybe 6 or 7 out of 54 countries. And in doing so, they need hard currency to import fuel, mostly from the Middle East. And that's very expensive. We haven't bothered about it here because our economy's been bolstered all the time and propped up by diamond income. And therefore, we got paid in dollars or whatever, and we had those dollars to use to buy fuels. And fuels are about 7 or 8% of our GDP. They're about 20-30% of our import bill.
Yeah, so I see. Almost over 20%. That's huge.
It's a lot, isn't it?
It's a lot,
It's a lot.
Yeah.
So the first thing is then the economic imperative. It would actually boost our GDP by what it's saved, because whatever we import is negative to GDP. So we import fuel, our GDP is 7% less. Now, this should really interest the government because they want to increase the GNI per capita. So you're already on a winner there. You're saving 7%.
Absolutely.
And,
GDP,
and then you're converting that 7% into, so it's a double win, into creating the power internally. Not just simply buying it in. We're actually generating our power and all the infrastructure and everything that goes with
jobs.
it. So the second thing is security.
Before you get to there, like you said, creating the jobs and the industry on the green side. But importantly, these are green jobs. So you actually, in terms of climate change, the country's profile from a green point of view, you know better.
It is, yes, it is. But I don't think whether jobs are green or the economy is green or black. I don't think that really wins votes in Parliament, to be honest. It's sad to say that, but I'm afraid that's my experience. And that isn't to say there's no interest at all, but the priority is we'll get to jobs, because a lot of people say, well, no, we'll get to jobs. Now, the next thing is security, energy security. We know that every time there's a war, Ukraine or the Middle East or whatever, zoom, up goes the price of fuel. And we heard the Minister of Energy announce more than once that we're going to increase our capacity of energy storage from, I think it was 12 days to 90 days or something like that. Forgive me, everyone, for getting the numbers a little bit wrong perhaps, but there's a cost attached to that.
It's billions.
And a big one. And that is because we want to ensure our energy security. If e-mobility was maximized, that we wouldn't have that problem. Do away with bot oil, but we won't need you. We won't need the massive fuel supplies. We don't need that industry anymore. Filling stations, as we know them, would go. There wouldn't be the unpredictability and vulnerability of our economy based on, importing our lifeblood. Our energy. We don't want to import energy, 30% of our electrical energy we buy from south. We don't want that. We want to be energy sufficient. And what's necessary here is to bind together the energy that we use in the transport sector with the energy generated in Marapula and elsewhere. It's all energy. When people think about energy, they just think about the electrical energy. We switch on the light.
Exactly.
When we drive a car, we don't call that energy. We call that petrol and diesel.
That's true.
And on many workshops I've been to, particularly when people see there as the Ministry of Energy is there, I said, please look at the energy
in totality.
Absolutely. Holistically.
Yeah.
Because with EVs, we're going to be switching. It may be slow, but we're going to be switching from one energy form to another energy form. So energy security is definitely number two. The third one is household economy. At the household level, and I'll perhaps explain a little bit later if you would allow me, and that is that it is much, much cheaper to run an electric vehicle than a petrol vehicle, considerably cheaper.
At the individual homeowner of a vehicle, whether 2-3 vehicles, is
over
cheaper.
10,000 pula a year, you'd save maybe 15,000. That's the difference. That's the big, big difference. To run an IC vehicle will cost you 1.7 pula a kilometre on fuel alone. Otherwise, it's 22 or 25 debi a kilometre using electricity. So you can see the ratio. It's 1 to 6 or 1 to 7. That's an enormous saving for households. So at the household level, it's very, very important. Now, somewhere near the bottom of the list is climate change, environment. And these days, it's a matter about credibility. We know that there's huge sums of money to be had in terms of investment if your credibility is green, as you quite rightly say. If it's not, or if you're greenwashing, then you can't really get that access to all that investment that you need. And one of the things I was saying about NDP12 is that it doesn't come across as a green agenda. If it wrapped itself in green paper and sold itself as a solidly green agenda, that in every way, we poured out everything that was green in it and really pushed the green agenda, and there was credibility there, then the money would come in, green investment would come in, because many banks and investors, and even the EU in terms of trade now, they want to see who they trade with is is incredibly green. And I don't see any now. We should not be differentiating the green economy from we might call it the normal or black economy. There's only one economy, and it has to be green because it's cheaper, it's more efficient. That's why people switch to it. We are condemning ourselves to a slow death by burdening our economy with very, very expensive electricity. Very expensive electricity. So why we're doing that, I don't know.
Just to hold you there, you are saying Botswana probably the most ambitious economic development agenda is the Botswana Economic Transformation Program, which you have reviewed. You've been interviewed around its climate alignment. And what are you saying categorically in terms of that document and the green agenda and climate change?
I have the BETP database. I have every project, 188 of them, their money and so on, which sector, etc., whether it's public or private financed or PPP. So I photographed I went online. You can get all this information. It was hard work, but I put together a database. Now, having got it, you can analyze it. And the kind of questions you might ask is, how many of these projects will reduce carbon emissions? Hardly any of them. Obviously, the solar power projects do.
Yes, the ambitious
but
solar.
most don't. And in fact, at the end of NTP12, I calculated that actually our emissions will increase by 120%. We said we would reduce it by 30%, but actually it's going to increase by 120%. So they're not at all, decarbonizing the economy. And the same with BETP. It's not decarbonizing the economy. The other things you can learn from it is how does it comply with the 5 main pillars in generating employment, taking us to high income status, diversifying the economy, digitizing and making government more efficient. I can't remember the 5th one. You may be able to remind me, but you can use a qualitative assessment and look at each one.
Yeah.
And give it a score. How does that diversify the economy? Not really. Give it a 1, give it a 2. Does that one diversify? Oh, yes, we can give it a 4 or 5. And you go through all the criteria and you come out with 9 out of 20. So the total BETP gets scored 9 out of 20. Of course, it needs to do this at a workshop with a team, to be as objective as possible. But this is just me, one person, trying to analyze, trying to understand, which is what I do. It's my technical training and background, which gives me that urge to analyze and to find out. And there's nothing on electric vehicles in either of them. So,
despite the whole discussion about EVs a year, 2 years ago, all the hana about bringing them here, partnering with the Chinese.
Sorry, I was wrong. I shouldn't have said there's nothing about electric vehicles. There is, but there's nothing about e-mobility.
Yeah.
Because the two things that we are doing on electric vehicles, we want to add value to our minerals, so we're thinking of battery production, and we want to assemble electric vehicles, which it's
in there.
Yeah,
the assembly of electric vehicles,
like the previous government tended to do.
Yeah.
But that's about it. It's not seen as a huge transformation. It will be ETP, the big T, transport. The big T, transformation. It's not transformative in the transport sector at all. It's déjà vu.
Oh.
Well, because you would expect the transport sector to really be pushing this energy transition.
I'm with you.
But they're not responsible for it, so they haven't. And that's one of the things that I'm perhaps talking a little bit too much. You should be asking me questions.
That's what you are paid for, coming here to do the talking.
But no ministry is really taking the lead on e-mobility.
Yes, I wanted to give an example of where you said you went from minister to minister to check who's accountable, and you kept hitting blanks in terms of accountability.
No, it wasn't blanks. It was just conflicting results, conflicting stories. They all had a point of view and they all differed. I'm not going to name names, of course, or ministries, but it's and the evidence of that is that in the SONA, because His Excellency didn't write his SONA, he wrote a lot of it, but he relies upon
inputs from different ministries.
So because there's no ministry really taking the lead in e-mobility, he couldn't say anything about it. Maybe he wanted to, but nobody was giving him, something to say. The same with NDP12. There was no ministry taking the lead on e-mobility. If there was, for sure there would be e-mobility projects in it, which there aren't. And the same with the BTP. So we have all these submissions going in and being sorted out, and the priority 180 projects, it doesn't really include, it includes battery, it includes, the making of vehicles, but it doesn't include energy.
But let's be
transformation.
Let's be honest. You are an engineer. I'm an engineer. We usually call things as they are.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes.
We don't faff around the bush.
Well,
And why I'm saying this is because, Botswana, South Africa, Zambia, what, we are all participating in all these fancy conferences, signatures to all these protocols around climate change, speeches, ensonas, green economy, companies here in Botswana, green economy. But your assessment, and we even have a dedicated department at the ministry, the Department of Environmental Affairs, I assume, dedicated to, I assume, decarbonization and looking across ministries, I assume. I stand to be corrected. So we've got the structures, we've got the experts. What the hell is the problem?
There's the question, isn't it?
Because we tend to comply to all these things.
The climate change coordination effort consists of one person in the Ministry of the Environment. It's just one. That's it. Our policy approved in 2022, and our strategy, strangely, a bit before that, required that one of the main things was to mainstream climate change in all the MDAs and all the ministries, departments and agencies. But that isn't happening. And it's quite possible for transport to submit after that their master plan, where there is no strategy to decarbonize and reduce. It doesn't start off by saying, well, our sector, produces 9 gigatons of whatever it is, gigograms of carbon dioxide. Our idea is to get it down to 6 or 5 or 4. There doesn't seem to be that there. It shouldn't even be approved by Cabinet, because Cabinet did approve that master plan, even though it's carbonizing. It's a carbonizing master plan. It's not a decarbonizing master plan. Energy is a bit better for obvious reasons. We want to reduce our dependency on coal and, put up solar farms everywhere. And that's good, and rooftop solar and so on. And the current minister there, she's very much aware of things like that. And that's very good. Farming is a bit different. We want to expand our herd to 5 million, and obviously the enteric gases, the rest of it, and the whole value chain of beef farming is not exactly conducive to reducing.
Take it easy on us.
Yes, but we don't want to get there.
But it's true.
But it is.
It's true, yeah.
And transport want to build more roads. And there's no mention of public transport in the manifestos last year. I looked at them all, analysed them and wrote about it. Not one party mentioned public transport at all, anywhere. And therefore, there's no interest. It's not to say they're not interested, but it's not as important as building roads.
We're going to get there. We're going to get there because public transport is also very dear to me in terms of, especially, not just the Botswana matter. Public transport, from my unprofessional eyes, is fairly chaotic from the planning and modernizing point of view. And I would like to hear what e-mobility can do. Yes, I want to say. Before we get there, I just wanted to challenge you around the business case from what you said, especially reliance on fossil fuels. And all the unpredictability of what happens around the world. And the billions, as you said, Botswana, 7% of GDP, over 20%, 20 to 30% of imports being this. I think the estimate is about 1.3 billion US.
Yes.
Just on,
of our 20 or so, 19 billion GDP, yeah.
Exactly. How does one not move? I'm just trying to see in your articulation with talking to authorities, I think you said you're just with the ministers or something, or the committee yesterday
the
or
chair of the
whatever.
committee, yeah.
But why don't we move the dial away? Like you said, with an economy struggling, if you had to make a saving of $1 billion for a small country like Botswana, that's big time.
It's really big time.
Why don't we get the message?
Well, it's. I think they're obviously entrenched attitudes. Just the same as with we produce coal. It's in the ground. We're highly carbonized, and to change from that is very difficult politically. So that's an obvious one, isn't it? But there are other constraints which stop the transition to e-mobility, and all of them are driven by the fact there is no overall e-mobility policy. We don't have chargers, there's no standards, and so on, about transforming over to electric vehicles. It would be helpful, for example, if the CTO had a program of electrifying its fleet. What an example that would set for the rest
get those
of the economy.
thousands and thousands.
And it would save the government a lot of money, actually, if you can imagine. 12,000 vehicles electrified over a period of 10 years. Any economist can do his sums and say, you're going to save a fortune.
Sense.
Yes, exactly. And, that would be wonderful. It would be wonderful if our ministers drove around in electric vehicles.
Well, they tried during the vote-up time that last year with
that sort of thing. And
to be exemplary and actually demonstrate that.
I remember years ago with a very well-known public figure, I won't give his name, but if he listens to this, he'll know who he is, coming up with the idea of having a pilot electric bus scheme from Kabani. That's a bit of a clue to the CBD. But this was 6 or 7 years ago, you see. Very, very, very enthusiastic about it. But it's terribly difficult to get something like that off the starting block. And the CBD has no public transport, even now. So we're talking about public transport.
Central business
it can
district.
be the only CBD in the whole world that actually doesn't have a public transport system. Combis and buses don't venture into the CBD, do they?
Well, here,
yes.
I don't know, buses I haven't seen.
No.
Combis, I'm not sure.
No.
They don't? There's no combi rank in the CBD? I haven't seen one.
No, I don't think so.
Anyway, we'll get
stand to be corrected, folks.
We'll come to public transport. I know you see you love it with passion, but we'll get to that.
Yes.
But I just want to this thing about the business case, that why are we, as people like you and others, not doing proper positioning to convince? Or as you said, it's a culture thing. It's just, again, it goes back to our discussions around technology, looking at new things. Where are the universities? Where are the research institutions? I know BITRI, which is Botswana's Technology Research Institute, was heavily involved with the electric vehicle experimentation that happened a year ago. I don't know where that is now. That type of thing. Is it an ecosystem that's still fairly weak to be able to take on these things? I'm just trying to, so that those who are listening and want to do something, they can be convinced that you are right. And secondly, how can they contribute, to make things happen?
Well, we must have an MDA taking ownership and leadership. Otherwise, it's just
translate what MDA means. Yeah.
MDA? Ministries, departments, agencies. Or administrations, I'm not sure. And at the moment, it's falling through. As I explained, it wasn't in NDP, it's not in BTP, it's not in the SONA. It was,
So it's not infused in the policy.
No ownership.
In the policy formulation, it's not there. It doesn't appear. And there's no specific policy as well.
Trade have a stake in it because they're interested in manufacturing aspects of it. But, I can't imagine manufacturing batteries and electric vehicles, but not buying them, not having any e-mobility policy, not having a local market for them. It just doesn't ring true. Now, in BITRI, they were charged with setting up a manufacturing of electric vehicles.
Or assembly plant, whatever it is.
That's what BDP government wanted them to do. They really weren't interested in the wider socioeconomic benefits of e-mobility. So I spent a year with them writing an e-mobility policy. So they actually have a draft e-mobility policy, which was given to them in October 2023. I don't know where that's gotten to, because the Ministry of Innovation, the rumour had it that the minister didn't see opportunities to innovate sufficiently, because you can simply import your electric vehicles. You don't have to. There's no need for R&D and innovation.
Just partner with the
to
Chinese.
some extent, he's right. He's right.
Yeah. Well, there are many ways of infusing technology. You can be innovative. You can adapt from others.
So in the absence of a policy, or at least some strategy or some
framework,
cohesive government statement saying we are for e-mobility. But e-mobility, it's never been raised in the House. It's not been in any official documents, not this year, even with this transformative government. It's not there in bright lights saying we are going to transform the transport sector. And without that leadership, we know in a heavily centralized country like Botswana, like ours, that is necessary. It's a prerequisite. You can't go anywhere without that.
It's interesting you mentioned we are so heavily centralized. I'm just thinking, if central government is so, I was going to use stubborn, maybe it's the wrong word. You go to another district, like let's say our really, tourism area like Okavango and Maung, where the council there decides they're going to go ahead and bless and have a policy for the council. I'm mentioning this because it's a globally green sensitive area because of the delta and the tourism. That is actually a good thing to go green. Even say Maung would become a green city. And then there's public transport, everything gets infused. That in Botswana, that's not very possible, is it? Because of the heavy...
Well, it isn't.
Because the council can take over and say, we're going to run...
Your question is a little bit about public transport now, right?
Yeah.
Right. Well, as you know, in the news today, the industry representatives want to increase fares. Did you read that? The combi fares to go up to, was it 9 pula or something like that, taxi fares up. Maybe I've got the numbers wrong. But obviously they're going into negotiating cycle and they want to increase their fares. And understandably too, because the financing of public transport is, well, it's not policy driven. The government isn't saying anywhere that our policy is to prefer public transport to private transport in towns. Now, many countries around the world have long passed that point and say, well, our preference to transport planning in towns, in our towns and cities, is public transport, not private transport. But there's no statement like that anywhere because they're not saying anything about public transport. The industry is highly fragmented into tiny owner-operators with a few exceptions. They're totally underfinanced, which is why the vehicles are as old and as dilapidated and dangerous as they are. So in the absence of a policy, even public transport suffers because like electric vehicles, we're not seeing a definitive government status where we prefer public transport to private cars in towns. We want to stop building 3, 4, 5 lanes and flyovers. We'd rather build bus lanes and bus ranks and have electric buses, and we'd rather people go by a very, very good public transport. Now, because it's underfunded, we can't upgrade, we can't refleet. There's no money in the industry. It's not anywhere near enough in money in the industry for operators to upgrade and refleet.
But is it a volume thing? Because I'm here even comparing bigger cities like your Johannesburg, your Lusaka, your Harare. It seems like it's the same public transport disorganized, going into electric vehicles as well in terms of bus systems. It's still the small combis, uncomfortable, crowded, a bit of a dog-eat-dog because of the little money there. I mean, I understand why they are sometimes very unsafe because they speed around, they do. I mean, it's something that's really we got to look at. And before you come in, I mean, you're talking about EV, e-mobility and public transport. But I'm trying to get the mayor here and say the mayor of Gaborone, because I've always said, why don't our infrastructure seems to be built for vehicles. It's not built for people. In terms of just even basic zebra crossing, overhead. I mean, you would rather spend in a big bridge than actually endanger people with a where people are passing and you can see this is extremely dangerous. But it'll be a big deal to just do a 10 million pula overhead.
The big bridges aren't down to the city council. You're asking the wrong person.
Is it? Again, I mean, we don't see it as
because
you said,
they're on trunk roads, which is part of.
I understand.
Yeah,
I understand.
Yeah.
But that's part of the problem. And then you have go to the bus rank in Botswana. We do all sorts of fancy buildings where the people are. You know, this is why it's important, because I want this podcast to talk to the people out there who go on combi. Some even walk. Some even cycle to work. And they will want to know why this fancy e-mobility is important to them, Doug.
70%.
And I want to combine it with these concerns that I say. We did address that. I mean, it's not going to address the fact that, you know, the one point I wanted to make, like right now we're going to festive. The bus rank is going to be packed. You have people lining up in the heat. I mean, our bus ranks are not even covered. I just said, why can't you just cover them with corrugated iron sheet? You know, simple roof. When it rains, the people line the bus and there's rain and they're not covered.
Yeah.
And this is like a global thing in Botswana. I haven't seen the same thing in South Africa. I haven't seen that we tend to, but all the government officers and all that will have all the fancy vehicles, all the stuff. That weighs our priorities in terms of, because those are the people. And it just concerns me. I know maybe e-mobility is not going to address that. But even walking, where the roads are designed such that there are no pavements, there are no trees for shade, there are no strategy for cycling. I mean, you could also do motorized.
In
I see that.
yes.
I've been to Tel Aviv where they use a lot of
yes, and the cycles are electric cycles.
Electric cycles.
Absolutely.
You know, parking for cycling, cycling for rentals.
Yes.
I mean, all these guys travel. We see these things all over the world.
Yes.
Why in Africa is it a big deal? Is it a cost thing? Am I being naive somehow?
I've obviously thought about this and talked about it with many different people. And going by bus is a sort of status thing, negatively. If you have a car, you've gone up a level. Right?
So there's a bit of culture there. There's a bit of status,
I remember discussing cycling years and years ago when I was running the National Transport Master Plan for a while. And the minister at that time said, no, we can't have cycling in Botswana.
Really?
It's too hot, or, it's not good. And I said, but it's in China, it's in India, it's in Malaysia, it's in Malawi.
It's in Tel Aviv, it's damn hot. Tanzania. It's in Dubai, it's damn hot. You can't have it here. Dubai is hotter.
Distances are too long, There was the negativity right from the beginning. And what it boils down to is only poor people cycle.
You reckon? You reckon that's the attitude? That's the culture?
I can't get any further on that.
I hope I was going to get it from
you.
There's
no lobby. Well, there's no lobby, you see.
Yeah, there's no enthusiasm even from the public, isn't it? Like you said,
no lobby.
The public,
they're the same. If you have a car, you wouldn't use a combi. So therefore, public transport is also considered to be poor person's transport. If you go to Brazil, it's absolutely opposite now. And Holland, of course, Only rich countries do you have decent public transport, and people don't use their cars. They use their cycles.
And they walk.
And then there's a marvelous clip of the former Prime Minister of Holland, Mark Rutte, handing over sort of the keys to the Prime Minister's office and cycling away.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah, I've seen that.
Wow.
Even Johnson, or that Prime Minister of the UK, used to cycle around.
He's a bit of a, But while we were here, we I can't remember his name, but the EU ambassador, Jan Sadiq, yes, a very nice guy, he would cycle to work. Here
in Botswana, isn't it?
Yes. So,
because it's flat.
Every time I saw that, I said, no, we can do it here. We can cycle to work. So there are cultural things, I think.
To deal with.
But absolutely, there's no transport policy, just like there's no e-mobility policy. So without a transport policy, we don't know what the government think. So things are ad hoc.
So let's connect that to the people, the e-mobility in electric vehicles, what it means now from a public transport for someone who stays in Old Naledi. What does it mean to him or her in terms of maybe saving a buck and convenience, and what does it mean to them?
Well, one of the reasons why the bus industry want to put the price up is because fuel. It's going up and up and up and up, and it's unstable. So, if I remember sitting in a bargaining session many, many years ago with exactly on this question, and fuel counts for, I don't know, 50, 60% of their input cost. Labor costs are quite low, but buying the fuel is very, very expensive. So as we mentioned very, very much earlier, that 22 Tebbe a kilometre, 1.7 Pula kilometre, it's a huge saving. There would be no need to put the fares up. Absolutely not. In fact, you would argue they have to come down because it's electric. The other thing is the vehicles themselves are very efficient, very nice, and we would move up from combis to articulated. Volvo do another beautiful 120-seater.
Yes, it's comfortable, airy,
electric
aircons.
Yeah,
so they'll be convenient. Yeah.
So that is extremely low unit cost. 15 people in a combi may seem to be cheap, but 136 in a big bendy bus, the unit cost of moving a passenger is practically minuscule. So these innovations actually drive the price down. So for the people, it is a great thing.
Yeah. I see there are some African countries that have actually taken on EVs, like Ghana, Morocco, South Africa, Ethiopia, Rwanda, as you might expect.
Yes.
Morocco has got 10,000 EVs
Electric
already.
vehicles,
and South Africa, obviously, roughly 6,000 in there.
Much,
So would you say it's a slow pace, but there is some adoption by countries? I mean, I always feel bad. Botswana is never in the list of this. So, our country, we really like this country to become innovative,
of
to
course.
be really on the frontiers of technology, never chasing things. Ghana is moving away on AI. Nairobi is moving with AI. Why is our Botswana ever chasing the wind? You're with me?
Yes, I
when
am.
people know, what really irks me is that, like you said, last year there was talk about EVs. There's always talk, but they always like political talk that fades away. I mean, everybody's talking about AI, but we still don't have an AI policy for Botswana.
That's correct. That's correct. Years ago in 2016, I set up a Facebook group called Transport Revolutionaries. And the whole idea was to build awareness of what's happening in the world of transport, including electrification, to the people of Botswana. Oh, not too many members, really. But, I think it's about 5,000 members. It's not too bad.
It's not too bad.
No,
It's not. It's not.
The point is, it's been going for 9 years. That's the thing. And
I should join it, by the way. I wasn't aware. So you've lost a subscriber there. So I'll jump in after this. Don't look at me like, where have you been? I'll jump in. Yeah, carry on. I was just
so there is a need to build awareness on all these things. There's a need to provide information, and then there's a need to influence the policymakers. Those have always been my three, sort of, you might say, steps. Build awareness first with climate change. Provide information, good information, influence policymakers. It's always like that. And the same with the revolution in transport. And electrification can definitely lead the way to that, because you know that already now in some countries, and particularly in the States, China, taxis don't even have drivers.
Self-driven.
They're self-driven or
China.
autonomous vehicles. Yes,
in China
and in many of the US states now, it's growing like that. Obviously, Elon Musk is right there at the front.
With the Tesla
are too. Yes, and they're starting that in the UK, and so
let's pitch it. Sorry to interfere. Let's pitch it at Africa level, because sometimes I always say, our country sometimes is small for economics of value. I don't know. I mean, I haven't done the study, but to, for instance, take apart Gaborone with about 300,000 population, try and introduce EVs, what it might not bring the revenue, the returns that it needs. But then you have a city like Johannesburg, which I think the whole area of Johannesburg,
5 billion.
I mean, first, it's a very rich area.
Yes.
Secondly, it's got millions and millions of people. You got cities like Lusaka, 4 or 5 million people. You got Harare, you got Nairobi. I mean, we can even go as far as Lagos with the public transport and the almost chaotic nature of helping the people to make sure they have smooth runs in terms of their daily affairs.
Yes, correct.
Why? I don't know if you've looked at that far, But why is it a general struggle to modernize our transport systems across Africa? I mean, I think Johannesburg, South Africa is usually quite advanced with technology. And you'll think what you just described, very comfortable, electric buses, spacious, 120, very, very quiet, good for the economy. I haven't seen some in Johannesburg. Maybe I'm missing something. No. But why are we all, even our most advanced economies like South Africa, have not adopted these type
I
of
can't
things?
swear to this, but I think the majority of bus public transport is privately owned, at least in sub-Saharan Africa. There used to be years ago government-owned buses, UDC, UBC, United Bus Company, something like that. Back in the 70s, colonial days.
Which country? In Botswana?
Zimbabwe, Botswana, South Africa. It's quite a regional movement. But they deregulated and thrust everything into the private sector. So government says, great, we don't have to worry about that one, other than regulating it a little bit, make sure it's safe, make sure that it's affordable. But the sad thing is that in terms of price control, their prices are too low. Like I said, even 9 pula for a ride, it's hardly anything. You can't, in many cities around the world, you can't get anywhere for less than $1. 15 pula. But here, and it's a fight to get it up to 9. So it's absolutely that. There's not enough money
investment in the public transport.
It's privately owned. It's chaotic because the bus industry is very, very heavily fragmented. We have, I don't know how many thousands of permits, and there's just a little bit more than the thousands of permits are thousands of buses. In other words, permit holders own 1 or 2 buses. Ciobello, of course, maybe have 20 or 30, but they're in the minority, and they're doing very well. But, the majority of public transport's in the hands of what they call owner-operators. They own a bus, they run it. They may have 2. And that's about it. So given the chaotic nature of the way the industry is structured, it's terribly difficult to improve it. So again, go back to the transport policy. A transport policy would promote the rationalization of the bus industry. They do it by providing fiscal incentives. They could have a refleeting fund with soft loans funded by the World Bank and others, so the bus operators can go there and get a very, very soft loan to buy a new vehicle, which we can say should be electric, of course. There's all kinds of ways of doing that. But we're not taking that step. And they're not taking that step anywhere else either.
And that's really
the people suffers, and the thing.
But would you
what you might hit on?
Yeah.
On your deliberations, we're very happy to subsidise air transport.
Yeah,
but not the people's transport. That's a takeaway quote, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
But are there examples? I was thinking here that the really good European public transport systems. You think about London here with the red buses.
Well,
are those public? I'm just trying to
they're
recall.
government owned. That's the difference. In Germany, they're government owned. Holland, they're government owned.
Is it?
UK, yeah. Of course. And
would you think we should consider that? Or we should just rationalize it somehow?
Of course. Well, what is more economically beneficial? Building a flyover, for a serious system of flyovers, $200-400 million, or putting $50 million into new buses for everyone? 400 million. Because if you get people out of their cars onto a wonderful bus system, you don't need to build extra highway capacity, do you?
Yes, the cars will
So there is a strong economic argument which justifies subsidy of public transport. Luxembourg, it's free.
Yes, I think it was Costa Rica as well made it free.
Also,
yeah.
Why? Because the economic argument
is very,
very clear, but not here. We try to run a passenger railway system, right? And we say, we have to shut it down. It's not making money.
Who said it should make money?
But yes.
I'm saying it should be subsidized because first for safety, getting cars. What I'm saying, you haven't done the total feasibility to ascertain the value.
It's looking at things in terms of economics, not in terms of
social
finance.
Finance,
yes. So the income might be sufficient to pay the wages and the fuel and so on, but other higher costs, and it probably doesn't do that. But we're quite prepared to do that to roads. Roads are subsidised, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Yes. But we can't subsidise rail. We subsidise air. Why do we subsidise air, but we don't subsidise public transport? There are more trips per hour in and out of Gaborone in the peak than in the whole year in and out of SSKI or something like that.
That's true.
It may not be precisely true,
Yeah,
but
sure.
I'm sure listeners understand where we're coming from.
Yeah.
But it is like that, Yeah.
Doug, we had 2 weeks ago, we had a whole hullabaloo and the whole G20 here, first time hosted in Africa, with obviously big objectives, big names coming to Africa for the first time for the G20, hosted by Cyril Ramaphosa. So from a climate change and e-mobility, from your expertise, I know in one of the recent publishes that you've made, you did make commentary about G20. So I just wanted to take your summary of how you feel it went generally, especially from an African context and a Botswana context, whether I know Botswana was very silent in terms of presence. I don't even think the president attended. There were pockets of private and maybe, I know Minister Boholo was there. I saw some clips of it. But overall, your take from an African perspective.
Well, I think you said a lot of it. That first of all, it was held on our continent, which is the first, and that is a huge, huge mountain to have climbed, to have got to that point. It's a pity that a lot of it was overshadowed by this sort of US, South African
boycott story.
Yeah, and now this thing is going to happen in reverse. That's deeply regrettable. I'm a multilateralist, and I think Botswana are also very supportive of the multilateral process, rules-based system, UN Charter, and when countries meet, such as the G20 or the G7 or UNGA, the General Assembly, it's a wonderful opportunity for leaders to talk to each other, to come down to the same level, to discuss issues. And they did. We were sort of had observer status, Botswana. We didn't get an invitation at all. I don't know why. Other countries did around us, but for some reason we didn't. And I covered that in my item, really, because we should be more center stage, because we are probably in Africa one of the leading voices on multilateralism, where some people are, how shall I put it, distancing themselves from the UN, from Bretton Woods, from the World Bank, and all those sorts of institutions which they see as sort of quasi-colonial, to distance themselves from it, particularly in Middle Africa, up there. But no, it's a celebration of multilateralism, coming together with common issues, common values, solving problems, and coming up with solutions. And in that regard, what was spectacular about it was that South Africa's resolution, because they write the resolution before the G20 starts.
Yeah, that I found that quite peculiar.
It's absolutely normal.
Is it? Okay.
Oh, yeah. You can't have leaders going in there and
debate.
I've never seen that before, So these things are sent out months
by the ministers and all the.
And it goes around and around and around and around. So by the time they get there, it's practically a rubber stamping signing ceremony. But that was done very, very successfully. Quite clearly, the agenda was accepted by 20 nations plus. And they did an amazing job there. They are indeed a rainbow nation. Difficulty
G20.
Straddling between China and Russia and the West, South Africa. So it was a great place to hold it. And yes, they did mention climate change. They were interested in sustainability.
Before you get into that, is it an elitist organization?
Is what?
An elitist organization that just looks at the 20 richest countries in the world? Because I'm planning to write a piece on the seemingly sidelining of smaller countries in these types of fora. Like you said, Botswana was not there, was not invited. Perhaps they couldn't really invite all the small countries. I see Namibia was there, Finland was there. I don't know what was status, but the Prime Minister of Finland was quite a mark. But I just wanted you to summarize is it correct, or I'm quite misinformed to think it's an elitist where you got the G7 and the G20, where all these, rich countries, now you pick a few from Africa, you pick those, and then they meet and try to discuss us in our absence. How does that sound?
Well, isn't government like that? So, a handful of people, not a handful, 600,000 people voted out of 2.5 million or 800,000. And now they have 36% of the vote, our UDC, but they have a vast majority of the seats, and they're talking on our behalf because there was some kind of election there. But they're there to represent everybody, even the 66% of them that didn't vote for them. So it's quite normal, I think, when you have an elected society, you have leaders that's why they're there. They're there to represent us. The United Nations are much more diverse, inclusive organization, of course, with 193 members there. And one of the things that came out of G20, and it came out of UNGA a bit earlier this year, and the Secretary General of the UN saying that, Antonio Guterres, is that it is now time to do something about the UN Security Council. Yeah. And Africa wants 2 seats on a permanent council. I absolutely agree 100% with that. And they came out with that. And they say, yes, the UN must change or become defunct. If they don't change, they will become defunct. It's no longer a post-Cold War, post-Second World War II institution. There are now, since the World War, when at the end of World War II, there was, I think, about 120 countries in the world. That's all. Now there's almost 200. So it's a very, very different political world to what it was then. And in those days, of course, there were a few leading dominant countries. Now it should be much more pluralistic. I don't go down with the multipolarity of the world. Everyone should be fighting their corner. I think we've moved on from that. I would like to believe that we moved on from that. I think America's taking us back to that. The African Union is attempting to bring us together, and the best example for that is the European Union, and where we get some sort of countries pulling in reverse. BRICS, of course, is a great example of multilateralism. So it's not dead. It really isn't dead. And Botswana has a much, much better role to play than they think they have in multilateralism, because they've supported it without hesitation. And they should have been invited because of their record. It's a small country, but we could punch a little bit higher than we are right now. Yeah.
And you say from the G20, just to close it, what are your biggest exciting takeaways for Africa from the G20?
I think that it supported climate change initiatives, green initiatives, and energy deficit, making up the energy deficit, recognizing and eradicating poverty, making it a major goal in Africa. I think these are the sort of, and it also seemed to be very into human rights as well, gender issues, violence, and these were very good things that came out. They steered away from global, conflicts.
Like the Ukraine war and that stuff.
And focused on the things which they could agree on. And so I think the green economy, as we talked about before, I think human rights issues, women involved in much greater involvement in public life. They discussed the importance of still the multilateral world as opposed to the multipolar world. I think these are a lot of takeaways from this.
And the critical minerals, which is very topical at the moment.
Yes,
with the US trying to negotiate separately with the DRC for their critical, their cobalts and stuff like that. Yeah. That now we need to start leveraging our own processing in Africa. I think that also was one of the key things that was agreeable at the end.
I can't remember what they said about the Pan-African free trade area. I would like to believe they did say something about that. But did you pick up anything on that?
Not really.
No, but they should have done, because I think we were one of the last countries to sign on that. So when we're talking about earlier, well, why is Botswana generally, the last to leave the starting block, in this race? I wrote something quite recent. Well, not recently. It was when we won our 200-meter, was it gold medal?
Yeah, 400 meter. Yeah.
Sorry. And I contrasted that with the speed with which our government moves. So here we have a wonderful, wonderful guy dedicating himself, and to win globally, nationally, absolutely marvelous. And then here we have a government which is reticent, slow, ponderous, procrastinating. And that must change, really. I hope our present leadership understand that. We can't dither in this fast-moving world. So why we should have been one of the last. We were one of the first to sign it in Kigali in 2018, I think it was, and one of the last to ratify it some 7 years later. Why? I think there was some problem with diamonds, with it, how they would classify it. Trade, maybe there was something like that. But we can't be like that, We should be hosting conferences here which are promoting what we believe in, which is multilateralism.
Now we coming towards the end, and I just want us to imagine you now. Let's mention the name of the Minister of Transport and Roads and Infrastructure, Minister Salakai. If you had to have coffee with him, and then because we're talking a lot of economics, and then it just happens that Minister Haulaki is also sitting in to appreciate the feasibility and the economics of it. And just like third person to join in. I'm trying to get him here as soon as possible as well.
What, Minister
the mayor?
Salakai?
No, the mayor. No, this Salakai.
You're getting him to join in this convo.
You have the Minister of Finance, and then you have the Mayor of Gaborone.
I thought you suddenly zoomed him in Spock, and you're sitting there.
So the question is, what will be those two things that you say, if you get these two things done within a year, the dial will start moving? What would you recommend?
Well, we must move to public transport. We simply cannot go on expanding the road system. There was a famous South American mayor that said that some people think that if you loosen your belt, you're going to lose weight. So you feel slimmer. And that's what they're doing. They're loosening their belt. They're building more road capacity because then it keeps the traffic going. But it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable economically, environmentally, socially. So, the city council must sort of say, well, look, if you're going to give us a little bit more autonomy, which is what the president has said he's going to be doing and pushing things down.
Then decentralization.
And one of the things that's decentralized in the world is public transport. It's hardly ever run by or managed by central government. These are local government issues. Now, years ago, and I don't think it's in the master plan, but it is in the transport policy I drafted years ago, creating a Greater Gaborone Transport Authority. Now, that transport authority would take charge of public transport and land use as well, by the way. And that's what I would urge him to set up. And once he's got the sort of institution right, then it can be a target for funding. And he can put in cycle lanes, better footpaths, better facility for pedestrians. And I remember being involved in the tentative idea of redeveloping our central bus rank in Gaborone. It's an amazingly large area, and it's mostly used for parking.
It's used by vehicles.
Yes, I mean, the mobility part with buses come and go is actually really small. The rest of it's used for what they call layovers in the public transport parlance. If you stop for a few hours, to lay over to give your crew a rest, they're parking there pretty much for free. And so we have this sort of, 50-hectare site or something like that. And most of it's used for parking buses and combis. Now, that site is immensely valuable, being between the, government compound and the CBD. So we were part of a team with, I think, Tridemic to put together a proposal to absolutely redevelop that and to put in a smart bus rank, electronic. People have apps. You see when your bus is coming on the app. We can do that. We can do it. It's not beyond our reach. We can do it. And buses come and go very quickly through a sort of herringbone system, in and out, They don't park there at all. They have to park somewhere else. And the whole area.
Yeah, they only come in to pick up where they pick up and they leave.
Yes.
You're right. There you got a lot of...
That's the modern smart bus rank. And it's linked to the railway system as well. It's wonderful.
Because you've got to drop people by the railways.
Yes. That's all possible. And I would say that to the City Council. Pick up where you started. This was 2016. And they were asking for submissions from groups, including ours with Trademic, to make a proposal to redevelop that central bus rank. I thought of having a theatre there. Make it the real hub, make it the real centre of Gaborone.
Because there's so much traffic there, people traffic.
There wouldn't be without that. There wouldn't be. You don't put traffic generating things in, like the field has got, amazing traffic generator right in the middle of town. You don't actually want to put a supermarket there, really. So you try to balance it, really, in terms of mixed development, very modern, make it artistic, give Botswana,
give it some joy,
give Gaborone a heart.
Yeah.
It's a big enough area to give us a heart. We've got the government side, we've got the business side. Now give it a heart. Anyway, that was my crazy idea at the time, But the point is, the City Council didn't do anything about it. Now this mayor may want to pick that up.
Yeah,
I hope he does.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it looks like you are going back to the public transport for these three gentlemen to appreciate, from economics, from transport, from a mayor point of view, to really look at that. And then obviously the big thing is the economics of overall e-mobility or transport policy. I mean, I think that's the big thing that I'm sure you won't walk away till they have said yes. We will look into that. Is that the big thing? That will be the economics of it? To say
it's win-win.
It will benefit Botswana big time.
It will. Win-win. Win-win at the macro level, security level. Oh, we didn't mention jobs, by the way. If I can just slot that in. Please, yes. So I did some research before coming here because people say, well, it's not going to be good for jobs because people lose their jobs at filling stations or mechanics and all that sort of thing. Well, in the States, employment doubled. And generally speaking, for every one loss in the IC world, you gain 2 jobs in the EV world.
In the EV world?
Yes. And in Africa, Botswana, it will be even greater because we don't have an established industry. We're starting from nothing. So if you did want to go into some branch of manufacturing, get into the value chain somehow, that would be even more jobs. So it actually is a job generator. 2,000 to 3,000, according to my estimates, new jobs would be created in Botswana in the e-mobility transition.
If it takes off as we wish.
Yes.
Not as stipulated in the BETPs and the NDPs where it's a bit subdued.
It's not subdued, it's not mentioned.
Exactly.
Exactly. So, yes, we're getting there because everyone has a charger at home on their wall to charge up their vehicles. There's parking chargers everywhere and car parks and all that here and there. So there's a whole new industry in charging electric vehicles. Those that are involved in maintaining ICEs will switch over to maintain electric vehicles. There's no loss there. Plus the being part of the EV value chain, of course, would generate jobs. It is a marvellous opportunity for Botswana. We tried to get into manufacturing cars, wasn't it? In Pique. Who was that? Hyundai.
Yeah, Hyundai.
And it failed, didn't
30 years ago.
It did.
So, yeah.
And we should learn from that. Another message I would like to give listeners across Africa is to work together, because the motor industry is a incredibly complex value chain. If you get into it, and please try to do that. There's no one country that manufactures everything. Nowhere in the world is that done. Parts are made here and there and there. And the whole thing is a logistics exercise in adding value. Now, Botswana, with its low industrial base, is in no position at all to sort of take it, nor is Kenya, nor is Ethiopia, nor is Uganda, nor is Burkina Faso, nor is Morocco, nor even is South Africa. We have to work together. Let's have an African response to a pan-African-wide response to electric vehicles. Not each little country trying to do its own thing and compete against each other. So
local manufacturing.
No.
You haven't talked to the region.
What could we do here? We could make batteries, right? What could they do in Zimbabwe? They make drive chains. What they can do in Ethiopia, chassis. What they can do in Uganda, upholstery. And it all comes together, you see? That is the approach that's needed. I hope that was inspiring. I was inspired by that thought, actually.
Yeah, it's a good look. I have a big problem with this kind of
best thoughts come when you're sitting on the toilet, aren't they? Isn't it? Or laying in the bath or having a shower or something like that.
But you say that,
yes.
A few months ago, I was presenting at an AI summit in Victoria Falls, and the Minister of Technology came by to the conference, as is usual, and we managed to sit with her. And they were also struggling with getting an AI policy. And I was teasing her. I was like, I'm from Botswana. Botswana is trying to get an AI policy. Namibia is trying to get an AI policy. You guys are doing the same thing. You are a relatively small country. Why don't you just come together and do one? You know what I mean? Obviously, there could be nuances per country, but we are so isolated. That's why I always ask, where is SADC? Where is AU? Where we harmonize things, we do trade policies, transport policies collectively. I thought that was what SADC was supposed to do from a centralized perspective. But you're spot on. I mean, I think electrical harness is a good example where we manufacture harnesses here for the South African auto industry.
We have to plug these things in.
Yeah.
Are we going square pin or round pin?
Exactly.
If you know what I mean. No, there are standards, plug-in standards. So what are we going to adopt? The Chinese standard, US standard, European standard. So we have to get round the table in SADC and agree some things, And that's obviously one of them. And harmonization of standards is a classical regional integration issue. That's what it's about. When standards are fully harmonized across a region, then you can say you're fully integrated. The markets are fully integrated. You can set up here and sell there and so on. And at the moment, actually, I don't know if it's still in, but there's a electric bus put together, shall we say, in Uganda, and it arrived in Francistown 2-3 days ago, called Kaula. It's an electric bus.
It's manufactured in Uganda. Assembled in Uganda, let's put it that way,
in Uganda. It's actually Chinese, really, but they add value to it. And they're driving it around here, and it arrived in Francistown. It was met by the mayor of Francistown. It's now down in Gaborone. I hope our mayor meets it, actually. And, it's trying to promote electric vehicles, and who can blame them? They try to manufacture them there. There's Kira Motors in Jinja, in Uganda. I was there in 21, so I visited the factory. It's taken them a long time to get to this position, but they have 24 electric buses running around Kampala now. There's electric buses in Cairo, electric buses in Addis Ababa. And you'll say, well, why aren't there electric buses in South Africa? There will be very shortly, I'm sure. There's no constraint, really. It's just a political will to transform. Well, in South Africa, of course, they've got
electric cars.
Exactly.
Those are that I know.
And actually, they are the manufacturers of the very, very first electric car in Africa. The Jewel was made in Cape Town in 2006.
Wow.
It's actually a pretty good car, but timing is everything, isn't it, with these things? So the market wasn't ready for it. But the Jewel, check it out, 2008.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thanks, Doug. Is there anything that you think we missed that you'd like to just communicate to our viewers based on everything we've touched on, or we've touched most of the salient, important points?
I have a feeling that we have out there like a volcano. It's waiting to go off. And certain little things need to trigger it. And I think the more people that begin to understand fully that, this is going to be good for them, they will spend less, the better. But at the moment, I detect still some misinformation, some lack of understanding, and also a more depressing type of view that it will never happen in Africa, or not in my lifetime. Please, people, this is not Africa is not an excuse for things not to happen. It can happen, but it depends on you.
Way to finish. Thanks so much, Doug. It's been such a pleasure as usual, and most enjoyable.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and the insights are very important. These are the type of conversations that I think, and a lot of the feedback we've received on Growthwell is people sitting, whether in Lusaka or in Lobatse, saying, I never knew that stuff. You're really enlightened. Some of them even thinking of going into new industries because of the enlightenment. So it's people like you who do the research, who are ready to share. Because sometimes academics, they stay in their aloofness, in their cocoons, and they don't come out. Ivory towers.
You can't use the word ivory.
Ivory towers, absolutely. Yeah. So thanks for sharing. I really appreciate it.
It's been a great pleasure as always, Albana. Thank you so much for allowing me to share my thoughts and views.
So thanks, guys. I hope e-mobility and electric vehicles was not something that's out of this world and too much for you, because we really tried to make it as simple as possible, because we believe that it's just a matter of time. It's going to hit town. And it's up to us to also put pressure on our politicians or our ministers and our councils, because this can only add value to our lives, as nicely articulated by Dr. Douglas Rasbash. Thank you so much, and see you in the next episode. Guys, the Growthwell family, thank you very much for watching, and we really appreciate it for the growth that we've gone through the past year. But the bulk of you are still not subscribing on our YouTube channel, and we'd like to encourage you to please subscribe so that we can increase the viewership and the reach. And those that are not on YouTube, please also share, like, so that we can reach more people out there. Whilst on YouTube, we also have a very vibrant WhatsApp community that will love you to join in as well, where we do debates on these issues. The community you can find on the description aspect of the YouTube. So go there and you can join our WhatsApp community. Thank you very much.